The life I had with Ethan was perfect. Or at least, that's what I told myself every time I caught myself looking out at our beautiful backyard or strolling through our pristine living room. There was nothing more I could ask for. A stunning house in a quiet, upscale neighborhood, exotic vacations to places I could only dream of, designer bags, clothes, the works, everything I could possibly want, or at least that's what I told myself I needed. But the truth? I don't think I was ever really in love with him. Not in the way I thought I should be. Sure, I loved the idea of him. I loved how easy life was with him. Ethan was solid, dependable, reliable, and yes, he provided. He was always there, doing exactly what he was supposed to do. But when I looked at him, when I really looked at him, I didn't see the spark that I saw in those stupid romance movies. He wasn't passionate or exciting. He was just there. And that was fine by me. Maybe it was even better this way. After all, excitement wasn't exactly the point of life, right? I didn't need excitement. I needed security. And Ethan gave me that. I could count on him to never let me down. That's why I stayed. That's why I never left. It wasn't love. It was convenience, stability, and comfort. Every morning he'd leave for work, all businesslike in his crisp button-up shirt, off to his sound design studio or meetings with high-end clients, talking acoustics in a language I didn't understand but had learned to nod along to. Acoustics? Seriously? Who cared about sound reverberation and how to make buildings perfectly harmonized? I sure didn't. All I cared about was the check that came every month, the luxury stores I could shop at without thinking twice, and the vacations that were perfectly Instagrammable. Was it shallow? Maybe. But Ethan was good at giving me that life. It wasn't glamorous, but it was comfortable, and in my mind, that was enough. My friends didn't get it. Well, maybe they did, but they always had a bit of a judgmental tone when it came to talking about Ethan. "Ugh, that guy is so boring," one of my friends would say. "How do you even get through a dinner with him without falling asleep?" The first time I heard that, I laughed it off. "You don't get it. He's solid. He's what I need," I'd say, as if that was some sort of justification. But as the months went on, it became a joke I couldn't avoid anymore. "So tell me, Maya, does Ethan have anything more to talk about than his acoustic stuff? I feel like I'd lose my mind in his world," another friend remarked one evening after a dinner at our place. "I mean, he's a 5.5 on a good day, but he gives you everything you want. Gotta love that, right?" I didn't even realize I'd said it out loud that night, but the thought had crossed my mind a million times. The 5.5 joke? Yeah, that was me. Ethan had always been a little bland in the looks department, but what did that matter when he was so damn good at making sure I never had to worry about anything? He paid for everything, and I loved that. I knew deep down I wasn't completely satisfied with him. Honestly, who would be? He was like an overly polished mannequin who happened to have the right credentials and could make anything sound expensive, especially me. At some point, though, I stopped caring about being in love in the way the movies told me I should be. Maybe it was just about finding someone to fill the void, and Ethan filled it perfectly. Every evening, I'd watch him get home from work, eyes tired from staring at blueprints all day, and I'd try to muster some interest in his stories. "Oh, tell me about the acoustics work you did today, babe," I'd say, trying to feign enthusiasm, knowing full well it wasn't my thing. He'd smile, relieved that I cared enough to ask, and then launch into a monologue about how a new project was going to change the way sound moved in concert halls. I'd nod along, not really listening. In my head, I'd be planning my next shopping spree. I could feel a sort of guilt creeping in every time I wasn't really engaged, but it wasn't like I was doing anything wrong, right? I was being supportive in my own way. I mean, I wasn't asking him to sweep me off my feet with some grand gesture. All I needed was for him to keep being Ethan. A bit dull, a bit predictable, but always there. And in the end, isn't that what really matters? I can admit it now, but it wasn't just Ethan's lack of excitement that bothered me. It was the fact that I had grown so used to his unwavering consistency that I started resenting him for it. I found myself rolling my eyes when he would get overly excited about perfect sound designs. I didn't care. His passion for his work felt suffocating, like he was drowning in it, and I was just there, floating along, not really part of it. At some point, I even found myself complaining to my friends about how much I felt like an accessory in our marriage. I wasn't really his equal. I was the pretty arm candy, a perfect match for his high-end life. But who wouldn't want that life, right? The money, the freedom, the status. What more could anyone want? I was entitled to all of it, and Ethan gave it to me without hesitation. And if that meant I had to pretend I was interested in soundproofing or designing acoustics in every space we walked into, well, that was a small price to pay for the life I had, right? There were days when I'd sit in our marble-floored kitchen, sipping my coffee and scrolling through my phone, seeing other women living lives that seemed more exciting, more spontaneous, more passionate. I'd compare it to my life, wondering if I was missing something. But in the end, I always came back to the same conclusion. I don't need that. I have everything I could want right here. But I had stopped realizing that everything I had, my big house, my designer clothes, my perfectly balanced life, was built on something I hadn't fully appreciated. Ethan. He was everything that made it all happen, and yet I wasn't sure I even truly saw him anymore. I was comfortable, and comfortable was enough, or so I thought. Girls' night. Every few months I'd organize one, just me and my closest friends, getting together to unwind, gossip, and drink a little too much wine. Ethan was always fine with it. He never had a problem with me going out as long as he was busy with his work, which, let's be real, was almost always the case. So when I found out he'd be out of town for a work trip, I couldn't wait to host one of those nights where I could just be me. No masks, no pretending, just fun. We gathered in our living room, which looked like it came straight out of a glossy magazine. The perfect place to sit back, sip on cocktails, and gossip about everything and nothing at the same time. The wine was flowing, the playlist was on point, and the conversations bounced from the latest scandal to who was dating who, to inevitably my marriage. "All right, Maya," Sarah, my best friend, said, as she leaned in with that mischievous grin of hers. "We're doing the rate your partner game again. Let's see if your husband's really as perfect as you make him out to be." I rolled my eyes playfully. Oh God, this again? I loved Sarah, but she always pushed me to spill my guts. Not that I ever really had anything to hide. At least I didn't think I did. We all sat around in a circle, a bottle of rosé sitting in the middle, and took turns playing the silly game. The rules were simple. Each person would rate their partner on a scale of 1 to 10, with a twist. For every rating, we had to add a "but" statement, as in, he's a 10, but he leaves his dirty socks everywhere. When it was my turn, I let out a dramatic sigh, already knowing this was where I'd get myself into trouble. "All right, Ethan," I started, smirking at my friends. "He's a 5, but he pays for everything." The room went silent for a split second before they burst out laughing, all except for Sarah, who raised an eyebrow in that judgmental way she did when she thought I was being too blunt. I felt like I had to explain myself, but I didn't want to seem defensive, so I just shrugged and took a sip of my wine. "I'm just being honest. He's reliable, yeah, but he's kind of, well, boring. I mean, the man can talk acoustics until my brain starts to melt." The laughter continued, but something about the way Sarah looked at me, almost with pity, stopped me in my tracks. For a moment, I felt a pang of guilt, but I quickly brushed it off. "Hey, he knows it's true," I added, trying to sound casual. "He's a great provider. That's what matters, right?" My friends nodded in agreement, but there was an uncomfortable energy in the air. I didn't care. I was just letting off some steam. Besides, it wasn't like I had just trashed him completely. I was being honest in a joking way, right? What I didn't know, and what I wouldn't realize until later, was that I had said those words out loud at the exact wrong moment. Ethan had returned early from his trip. I'd never even heard him walk through the door. He had been upstairs in the shower, but because of the acoustic system he had designed, an upgrade to our home sound system that was supposed to give every room perfect harmony, he had heard everything, every word. I didn't know this yet, though. The night went on, and we moved from games to casual chatting, and then a few more drinks in, I started feeling the buzz I was so used to. My friends stayed late, and by the time the last one left, it was nearly midnight. I didn't think anything was wrong. That was until I heard the sound of footsteps from above, a slow, deliberate pace. The door to our bedroom creaked open, and there was Ethan, standing there in the doorway, his face pale, his eyes dark with something I couldn't place. "Ethan?" I asked, confused by his sudden presence. He didn't answer right away. His eyes scanned me with a mixture of disbelief and something colder. Then, finally, he spoke, his voice calm but laced with an edge. "You really think I'm a 5?" I froze. Shit. It took me a second to process what he was saying, and then, like a cold slap to the face, it hit me. He had heard everything, all of it. I tried to laugh it off, just like I always did when I said something that felt a little too real. "Oh, come on, babe, it was just a joke. You know how we get when we're all drinking. It didn't mean anything." I saw the flash of hurt in his eyes before he quickly masked it with indifference. He crossed his arms and stepped into the room, his voice suddenly ice cold. "A 5th? And you're okay with that? That's all I am to you?" I felt a sting in my chest, but I couldn't tell if it was guilt or annoyance. "You're overreacting, Ethan. It's just a stupid game. We were all joking. You know how it is." "I heard everything, Maya, through the sound system." Every word his voice dropped, but it cut deeper than I expected. "You don't think I've noticed? You don't think I've known you've been settling for me? You think this is just about a stupid number?" His words stung more than I thought possible. I opened my mouth to respond, to try to smooth things over, but nothing came out. My usual smooth talking was gone. "I didn't mean it like that," I finally whispered. But even as I said the words, I knew they were hollow. He could see through me. He always had, but I'd never had to face it before. Ethan looked at me for a long moment. Then he sighed deeply, like he was exhausted, defeated. "No, I guess you didn't mean it like that. But it doesn't change what it is, does it? I'm just a 5 to you, and you only care because I pay for everything." I wanted to argue. I wanted to defend myself. I wasn't like that, but I could feel the guilt weighing down on me now. There was no defending what I had said, no way to take it back. I had never seen him like this before. Ethan wasn't a man who got angry easily, but this was different. This hurt. He took a step back, and that's when I felt it. The distance between us had just grown too wide. "I think we need some space, Maya. I think I need to think about where this is going." The words hit me like a punch. "Wait! What?" I was in shock. I thought we were fine. Sure, we didn't see fireworks every night, but we were comfortable. We were fine. But Ethan turned away and headed for the stairs. "I'm not sure I can keep doing this. Not if this is how you feel about me." And just like that, the world I'd built for myself, the one that revolved around my comfort and my entitlement, started to crumble. The days after that night felt like they were stretched out on some kind of emotional rack. At first, I convinced myself it was just a moment of tension. Ethan would cool off. We'd have a talk, I'd apologize, and everything would go back to normal. He wasn't the type to stay mad for long, right? It was just a stupid comment after all. We'd been through worse before, but as the hours turned into days, I began to feel the weight of his silence. Ethan's usual habit of letting things roll off his back had completely vanished. He was colder than I'd ever seen him, like a shadow of the man I'd once known. There were no sweet good morning texts, No random gestures of affection, no smiles across the dinner table. Just a heavy, suffocating quiet. He'd come home late every night, and when he did, he barely acknowledged my presence. It wasn't the usual busy but loving routine anymore. This time, I could sense the distance between us growing into something far bigger than just a fight. It was like he was already checked out. And then it happened. He came home one evening with a serious look on his face. I could tell something was off. He dropped his briefcase by the door, and when he turned to face me, there was something in his eyes that I couldn't quite place. It wasn't just anger anymore. It was resignation. "I spoke with a lawyer today," he said, his voice calm, but the weight of his words hit me like a ton of bricks. I froze, my heart starting to race. "What? A lawyer? Ethan, what's going on?" He didn't look at me, just stared out the window as if the decision had already been made. "I'm done, Maya. I can't do this anymore." I felt my breath catch in my throat. "Done? What do you mean, done?" "Ethan, wait, please." I could hear the desperation in my voice now. I stepped closer to him, trying to make him see how sorry I was. "I didn't mean what I said. You know I didn't. It was just a joke. I don't want your apology." His voice was so flat, so devoid of emotion, it felt like a slap. "You don't see me. You never have. You see what I can give you, what I can provide, but not who I am. I'm not just a paycheck to you, Maya, and I'm not going to keep pretending like I am." I felt my stomach drop. His words cut so deeply, I could hardly catch my breath. He wasn't just mad, he was hurt. This wasn't just about a comment anymore. It was everything. The years of me taking him for granted, the emotional walls I had built between us, and the fact that I'd never truly seen him. I swallowed hard, trying to hold back the tears threatening to spill. "Ethan, please, I don't know what's wrong with me. I was just frustrated, okay? But I love you. You're not just a paycheck. I swear. You mean so much to me." But he just shook his head, cutting me off. "I can't keep doing this, Maya. I don't trust you anymore. I don't believe you. And I'm not going to stay in a relationship where I'm not valued for who I am." My words felt useless. I could see it in his eyes. He had already checked out. There was no coming back from this, not with words, not with apologies, not with promises. His eyes finally met mine, and I could feel the finality in the air. "I'm starting the divorce process. I don't think there's any point in dragging this out." My legs went weak. Divorce. The word hit me like a hammer to the chest. I couldn't breathe. I opened my mouth, trying to speak, but nothing came out. It was like I was drowning in the reality of what I'd just heard. "You're serious?" I whispered, my voice breaking. He nodded, his face as cold and distant as it had ever been. "I've already called a lawyer. I don't want this marriage anymore, Maya. It's over." A sob broke from my chest, but I quickly tried to stifle it, not wanting to seem like I was falling apart in front of him. But the truth was, I was already falling apart. The life I had taken for granted was slipping away in front of me, and I had no idea how to stop it. "I'm sorry," I said, barely able to get the words out through the lump in my throat. "I'm so sorry, Ethan. Please don't do this. Please, I'll change. I'll do anything. Just don't leave me." His face didn't change. He didn't look at me with sympathy, or even with anger. It was just indifference. He was done. "I already am," he said quietly. "I've already left, Maya. I'm just waiting for you to catch up." That was it. That was the moment I realized everything was gone. The house, the vacations, the financial security, everything. The life I'd built around him, around what he gave me, was collapsing in front of me. I had taken it all for granted, and now I was going to lose it. Ethan didn't even wait for me to respond. He turned and walked out of the room, leaving me standing there, stunned and shattered. His footsteps faded down the hall, and with them, everything I thought I knew about my life. I collapsed onto the couch, tears streaming down my face. This wasn't a fight. This wasn't just a bump in the road. This was the end. And somehow I had done this. I had pushed him to this point, and I couldn't fix it. The weight of it all settled over me like a crushing wave. What had I done? What had I really lost? I didn't know it was possible for a heart to physically hurt until the moment I walked out of that house. The house I had called home for 6 years. The house Ethan and I had built together, a home full of laughter, arguments, and memories I had no right to hold on to anymore. Packing was the hardest thing I'd ever done. The closet I once raided for outfits, the kitchen where I'd made our morning coffee, the living room where we'd shared so many quiet evenings together, it all felt like it was closing in on me. Each item I placed in the suitcase, each familiar corner of the house, was like a piece of my identity being ripped away. My life, as I knew it, was vanishing in front of me. Ethan wasn't there to watch me go. He didn't have to be. I was already gone in his eyes. I had lost him, and I knew it. There was no point in him even trying to stop me. He had made his decision, and as much as I wanted to beg him to change his mind, I didn't think he would. He wouldn't even look at me anymore, let alone talk to me. The silence between us had become unbearable, so I didn't drag out the process. I threw clothes into bags, packed up my essentials, and left the house I never thought I'd leave. It felt like a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. I kept asking myself the same questions over and over, like if I could somehow will things back to the way they were. Could he forgive me? Could I fix this? But deep down, I knew. I knew the truth. I had messed up beyond repair. There was no going back. As I pulled away from the driveway for the last time, my heart felt like it was being ripped from my chest. The house grew smaller in the rearview mirror, and I felt an overwhelming sense of loss. Not just the material things, the luxury, the comfort, the security. Number it was the emotional security I had lost. Ethan was no longer the steady, safe presence I had always relied on. He was gone. When I finally got to my new apartment, I couldn't even bring myself to look at the place. It was small, it was cold, it was bare. Everything about it felt like a reflection of the emptiness inside me. The walls were painted in dull, lifeless colors, and the floors creaked under feet like they were complaining about having me here. I had expected it to feel different, like a fresh start or something, but all it felt like was the end of something I couldn't bring myself to let go of. I dropped my bags by the door and just stood there, staring at the blank walls. There was no Ethan here, no soft pillow on the bed that we'd shared, no familiar smell of coffee in the morning. There was only silence, only the hollow echo of my own thoughts. What had I done? I didn't deserve this. Or maybe I did. Maybe I deserve every ounce of loneliness, every second of guilt that gnawed at me from the inside out. I couldn't help but wonder if this was my punishment, living in a space that didn't feel like home, trying to breathe in a life I had destroyed. I sank to the floor, hugging my knees to my chest. The tears came, hot and endless, but there was no one here to comfort me. No Ethan to wipe away my tears or promise that everything would be okay. It was just me, just this empty apartment and the broken version of myself I had become. I glanced around the room again, feeling the weight of the silence, and my mind wandered back to all the things I had taken for granted. The dinners out, the vacations, the constant stream of things I didn't really need but thought I deserved. I had everything, and yet I had nothing. I'd let it all slip away because I couldn't see beyond my own desires. Ethan had given me everything, and in return, I had given him nothing but neglect. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself, but it wasn't working. I was drowning in self-pity, and no amount of reflection was going to fix that. But somehow, I couldn't escape the truth. I was here because of me. It was my fault. Still, even in the face of that crushing realization, a part of me held on to the tiniest thread of hope. Maybe he'd come back. Maybe we could work it out. Maybe there was still a chance, even if it seemed like everything was lost. But deep down, I knew I was lying to myself. Ethan wasn't coming back, not after what I'd done. He was done, and I was left with nothing but the consequences of my actions. And as much as I hated myself for it, I had to face the fact that this was the price I was paying. I didn't know what came next. I didn't know how I would move forward or if I could ever forgive myself. But I had to try, because for the first time in my life, I was truly alone. And this time, it was all my fault. It's been weeks since I left the house. Weeks since Ethan dropped the bomb on me, shattering everything I thought I knew about myself and my life. I keep telling myself that I'm better off, that this will make me stronger. But deep down, I know the truth. I'm falling apart. I scroll through my phone one evening, hoping to distract myself from the ache in my chest, when I see it. A picture. Ethan, smiling, looking completely different, more alive than I've ever seen him, and next to him, a woman. She's pretty, younger maybe. I don't know. It doesn't matter. The jealousy hits me like a punch to the gut. I want to scream. I want to tear apart my phone, toss it out the window because I know that this is my fault. I pushed him away. I was the one who let him go, the one who took him for granted, the one who treated him like an ATM instead of a person. And now he's moved on. I stare at the picture frozen as the rage and guilt flood through me. I hate him for moving on so easily, but at the same time I hate myself for not being able to move on from the past. I want to scream at him, tell him to come back, to forgive me, but I can't, because I know it's too late. I let the best thing that ever happened to me slip through my fingers. I can't stand it. My emotions are all over the place. 1 minute, I miss him with every ounce of my being, and the next, I wish I could take everything back. I want to apologize. I want to beg him to come back, to just give me another chance. I think about all the things I could have done differently, all the times I chose to ignore him, all the moments I was too selfish to see what I had until it was gone. But there's no point. There's no use. He's gone. As I sit in the small, cold apartment, tears blur my vision. I'm alone. I'm completely and utterly alone. And it's my own damn fault. It's funny in a way. For so long I convinced myself that I was happy, that I was fine with the way things were. I used to tell myself that Ethan's work, his obsession with acoustics, was the problem, that he didn't understand me, that he didn't know how to make me feel special. But now I see it. I see how wrong I was. Ethan loved me in his own way. He gave me everything I ever wanted. I just took it for granted. Maybe I never really loved him. Maybe I only loved the lifestyle he provided for me. I loved the comfort, the luxury. I loved being able to buy whatever I wanted, to take spontaneous trips without worrying about money, to live in that beautiful house. I never really saw Ethan for who he was. I never appreciated the man who worked tirelessly to build a life for us. I just used him. And now he's moved on, and I'm stuck here, picking up the pieces of a life I've ruined. I was never in love with him, not in the way I thought I was. I was in love with the idea of him, with what he could offer me. And now, that's all gone. I can't stop myself from crying, from feeling like I'm drowning in my own mistakes. I can't fix it. I can't undo the damage I've caused. And that's the hardest pill to swallow. I wish I could go back and do things differently. I wish I could take it all back, but I can't. And then it hits me. The truth. Ethan is gone. For good. He's moved on. And no matter how much I regret it, no matter how much I want to scream at him, beg him to come back, I can't. I have to accept that he's not coming back. He's done with me. He's finally free from the woman who used him, the woman who couldn't even see how good she had it. I sit on the floor, staring at the picture of Ethan and his new girlfriend, and I feel the weight of everything I've lost. I'm left with nothing but my own regrets and the knowledge that I destroyed the best thing I ever had. I don't know where to go from here. I don't know how to fix myself or how to rebuild my life. But I know one thing for sure. I can't keep running away from the truth. I have to face it. I have to face the person I've become and figure out how to move forward. Because if I don't, I'll be stuck in this never-ending cycle of self-pity and regret. And as much as it hurts to admit it, I know that this is the beginning of something I never thought would happen. The moment I start rebuilding my life, the moment I stop being the woman who lost everything because she couldn't see what was right in front of her,